Early on in this project, episodes 6 and 19 respectively, I covered 2 racing launch titles. Midway's tremendous, chaotic watercraft racing game, Hydro Thunder, and a graphically accomplished... Oh my god! I can't win. There's just not a time when there's no sound. I cannot win. He's still drinking. All he's doing is drinking water, and I can't stop him. Oh, boy. And a graphically accomplished but janky, awkward off-road racing game called TNN Motorsports Hardcore Heat. 8 months later, we received a product that is essentially a melding of those two things. A game called 4-Wheel Thunder. The name 4-Wheel Thunder is such a generic-sounding title that I was getting flashes of roadsters, and I didn't even initially process that it would nominally be part of the same franchise as Hydro Thunder. But structurally, it's a very similar experience. Curiously, it didn't begin life as a sequel to Midway's waterbound classic. French developer Callisto Entertainment, best known for the Nightmare Creatures series, which we will get into soon enough, had been developing an unrelated monster truck racing game that got folded into the Thunder lineage. But they did a thorough job giving it the same basic format. It handles closer to Hydro Thunder's reactive spark than the drift metric of other off-road games like Sega Rally Championship 2. And most of the strategy of the game is focused on getting power-ups strewn about the levels, and utilizing them at key moments to race yourself past your opponents. It's also a right trigger forward, left trigger reverse model, as opposed to the much more cumbersome trigger is the pedal, shift with a face button format that Roadsters had. The game has 12 tracks across 6 locations, and you're able to race with a series of vehicles, including not only monster trucks, but buggies, kit cars, and even ATVs, all of which have different pros and cons. The primary single-player mode is Championship, where, just like Hydro Thunder, the game is ruthlessly restrictive. The only way to unlock more tracks is to be first or second on every one. There's also a mode called Indoor-Outdoor Arcade Mode, which has a series of races with specific differences, like long outdoor tracks and sharper-turned indoor ones. Multiplayer has more modes, including one where you try to pop the most balloons, and one where you play tag with a bomb, which you can transfer to each other by ramming the other car. Frustratingly, this maintains one of my least favorite things about Hydro Thunder, the lack of a mode where 2 players can race, but also face a number of computer opponents. All multiplayer modes on 4-Wheel Thunder are 1v1, which feels so needlessly restrictive for a game and a console that can absolutely handle a full fleet. Reviewers took it to task for being too difficult, and they're right. This game is ridiculously hard competitively. Hydro Thunder was also ridiculously hard, but it had a compelling sense of competition and an exhilarating sense of speed that made me want to come back to it over and over, even though I could never quite master it. This game has a double whammy. It's structured in the same unforgiving way Hydro Thunder is, but also it's positioned like a rally game, where you have to start at the very back and work your way up. But the game has no sense of balance, and it isn't interesting or distinctive enough to make it feel worthwhile to be put behind the 8-ball every time. Visually, the game is lovely, running at a clean 60 FPS throughout, which also helps to make the responsive controls easier to navigate. I've talked before about how the thing I like about the Dreamcast is how few games qualify as shovelware, Games of low quality and low effort just being ported or shoveled onto other systems. Roadsters was one of those games. But one thing the Dreamcast does have, just as a function of its era, is the proverbial rental game. Games that do one basic thing and nothing else, even if they do it well. Something that's perfect to play for a day or two and take back. The kind of game that, as we discussed on the Toy Commander episode, doesn't really exist anymore. At least not among major AAA titles. Four-Wheel Thunder is absolutely this. You play it once, and you've basically seen everything it has to offer. A lot of racing games for the system are this level of kinda basic. So you just have to decide if it's fun enough to play, and if it's quirky enough or nice enough to look at, to strike your fancy enough to want to come back. Hydro Thunder fit this bill, and I still consider it the best racing game on the system through 77 entries. Four-Wheel Thunder is absolutely not bad. And if you're a kid in the year 2000 and this is the racing game you have, you can play it and enjoy yourself. It's well made and responsive in the ways that matter. It's fun to play. It's just not something distinctive or involving enough to come back for after a couple of spins. Next time, I've conjured up a perfect tactical strategy. We've got a man at every door, which should be just enough people to remember how to aim and shoot the guns that one of you should actually survive.